Okay, so here we go. I know it's Sunday, but you guys don't have me again until Wednesday, so frankly, that's plenty of time. So here we are, section 13. You were supposed to have done this in class, and I'm going to hope that you started it. Um, some of you didn't. You know who you are. We had many conversations about it, but I'm not going to go into that right now. I really want to, and I'm not. But you know who you are. So, shame on you if you didn't do it. But this is, you're going to notice in this, hopefully you noticed even before I mentioned it, like the patterns in here. So, um, even if you don't recognize the Latin, perhaps you can recognize the triangle, the box, the triangle, the box. Um, you have these quis, quis, quis. Hopefully, you remember that that is, in fact, anaphora. Do you remember anaphora? The repetition of that word. Hopefully, you guys recognize anaphora. We've done anaphora a bunch. So this is anaphora. Apparently, this is also called like repetition, which is what it is. It's just the fancy way of saying repetition, really. So you have an aphora. We also have ellipsis, which is when you remove something. So with each one of these, this should be a quis est. Hold on, let me get a pen, a different pen. All right, so this should be a quis est uh, in each one of these. And Cicero does that just like we did, because he's going to go, who was indeed more pleasant to the rich, more evil with the evil, more I don't know. Anyway, it's that back and forth, and we do this in English too, where you don't need to repeat the who was, who was, who was. You just have the quiz, 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 and that's who did this, who did this, who did this, and so that's uh another thing. It's called ellipsis. Hold on, I had to look up how to spell it to make sure I spell it right because it's got that Ellipsis. Okay, ellipsis. All right, so you have this again, ellipsis and anaphora. Uh, Funny, they also call it rhetorical repetition, like whatever you want. It is repeated for rhetorical style in this case, and you're going to get a lot of anaphora in here. Okay, because again, as we go down, notice all of the infinitives. These are all historical infinitives. I'll talk about that in a second. And then we have all of this. I know I told you in class that they were nominatives. I looked at it again. I'm like, it's probably vocative. I mean, six of one, half dozen of another, but with these E's, they had to be vocative. So I'm like vocative, cum, I'm sorry. Yeah, cum, vocative. So again, we have all this sort of parallel symbolism going in between. And he's just dismantling Catiline's character. And of course, at this point, Catiline is dead. But if you remember, Caelius was being accused of being friends with Catiline, so Cicero had to address that. Um, Remember, too, that in this judgment, Cicero had no idea what the opposing counsel was going to say. So he had to make a defense speech based on anything that might be said. So he's not actually necessarily doing a rebuttal per se. He doesn't know that someone has said this. He's just assuming someone is going to say this. So there must be some truth to the fact that this kid was indeed friends with Catiline at some point. All right, so quiz S, this is all referring to Catiline, okay? So who was more, okay, remember we talked in class the Yukundu, or those are those comparatives, who was more pleasant, claribus to the famous men, to the or notable men, I guess I should say, notable, famous men at quodam, make damn certain your dams are the same, at a certain time. Okay, who understood was more joined, connected with the wicked. There's a lot of words for wicked in this. He must use about he must have had a thesaurus for wicked, wicked, evil, crime, villain, whatever you want. Turporibus, turpor is something that is dirty, nasty, especially morally corrupt. Okay, so who is more joined to the wicked? Who, quis, in this case, you could almost say which citizen, because it goes with kiwis, was no, I lied. It's not better that way. Who was a oops citizen of the better part. Okay, and what this means, aliquando, at one point. Okay, so what this means is that this meliorum partum, this civis meliorum partum, is almost a legal or political phrase that the Romans said. It was a citizen of the better part, meant that you were a citizen in good standing who had the right friends and who did everything right, basically. Okay, so you were a notable citizen. I don't know. We can go into how we look at that today later. Okay. Who was, okay, we're going again into this quiz. Who was, oh my gosh, a titrior hostis qui civitate. And titrior here, I guess it kind of feels like it should take a dative. Who was a more disgusting enemy to this civitate, to the empire, to the republic. Could be republic. It's a republic at this point, so we'll say republic, to these citizens. Okay, who? Okay, again, quis. So who was inquinator? Who was more contaminated? Oh my gosh, contaminated? Maybe. Who was more contaminated in debauchery? Debauchery. Who, again, the quiz was more, who was more suffering. And I think this means like enduring rather than suffering, maybe. Enduring in work. Okay. So what we have are these strong contrasts, right? He was he was pleasant to the famous men, he was joined up with the evil men, he was a citizen of the greatest part and an enemy. Do you see those again, these juxtapositions? He was good, he was evil, he was great, he was villainous, he was debauched, but worked hard. Okay. So you have this strong contrast, and Cicero is definitely using that juxtaposition to sort of drive home the evil villainy of Catiline's character, but also mentioning all of the good parts of Catiline's character because so many people were taken in, according to Cicero, by Catiline's evilness. Okay. Which is, of course, supporting Caelius's friendship with Catiline as well. Okay. Who where I stopped with the patiente. Who? Okay, we're still going on this. He's going on and on. He's Cicero. Once you give him the stage, he likes the stage. So we have the quiz again. Who? So every time we see the quiz, it's going to be who was, okay, more, I want to say stingy. I said more repress, more eager. Let's do this. More eager in greed. Okay, who was more generous, generous in his largesse. That's a good way to say largesse in his donations, in his giving of money. So again, another strong here. He was very greedy. He never liked to give up money, but at the same time, he was effusive in giving out his money. And Cicero does point this out. These things truly, O judges, were mirabile, were amazing in that man. Okay. It's like I can't believe it. They all existed in that in this one man. These things, oh, judges, were amazing in that man. Okay. And what we have here is again the strong contrast of this. Oh my gosh, how could someone exist with such opposing moral, I don't know what you want to call it, moral compass points? He was east, he was west, he was north, he was south. He was constantly a contradiction. Okay. And now we're going to go on to this comprehendere. And these are what we call historical infinitives. Okay. Historical infinitive is kind of interesting. Okay. Let's see. Historical infinitive. Okay. Infinitive. So historical infinitive is second. All right, so sorry. Historical infinitive is used to replace an imperfect verb. We've talked about sort of when you have a syncopated verb version, or we've had like how Duke errant can just be Duke's array, right? That syncopated verb form where they change this into this, and that's sort of, it's not infinitive. This is what we call syncopation, but it looks like an infinitive. They also will sometimes just do ducere, the present infinitive, and what it means is duque bont. Okay, and it just refers to the imperfect, and it was a past. It's something that's done in the past. He was doing something over and over and over again. It's typically used to show a series of events that happened. It's supposed to speed up narration. It's supposed to pull you into the narration a little bit too. It's supposed to make it more action and sort of like, I don't know. It's like Cicero's really getting into his groove now. He's like, he did this and this and this and this. And so we're getting these long lists of things. And you're going to notice too that there's no quays and there's no ets in here. So there's quite a lot of asyndeton as well. Remember, polysyndeton is when we use all the conjunctions, and when there's no conjunction, that is asyndeton. Asyndeton is typically used to show a series of events that has no end. All right, asyndeton. Okay, so asyndeton. Again, it just shows that list, that never-ending list. Where polysyndeton, I had to do this and this and this. It creates a piling up of burdensome things. Asyndeton shows a series of events that just keeps going on and on and on and on and on. It's a subtle difference, but it's there. Okay. So with this, comprehendere is not really comprehendere, it's more like comprehendebant. So he was comprehended, gathering. I think here it can mean seize. It doesn't really mean seize. I think here he was gathering many in friendship. He was making a lot of friends. Okay. Okay. He I could say was making, but I think that's really, this is, by the way, not, I know it looks passive, it's actually a deponent verb. It's from tuior. Okay, and it means to make safe. And I'm trying to think of a good way to do it. He made them safe. He was making them safe. Okay, that the dem is ellipsed with his obsequiousness. He understood them safe with his, it's a better way to say obsequiousness. We'll say deference. Okay, so he made them safe with his deference. He communicare, he communicated with everyone, or I guess in this case might be better to he shared. All right, he was sharing with everyone, quote habit, what he was having. We can just say what he had. Okay. So there we go. And you can see now how all of that goes back and forth. So he was gathering many in friendship. He made them safe with his deference. He was sharing with everyone what he had. So he was collecting a lot of friends, and he was collecting them using sort of like all the typical tricks that we've seen in movies, that dirty politicians use to make people their friends. Okay. They use money, they use influence, they get them out of parking tickets, and all the other stuff that I'm not going in on right now. Okay. So this, by the way, temporibus is a dative. I had marked it as ablative earlier because I was like, oh, it's just an ablative with time. And then I read the notes and I'm like, no, it's a dative with the serere. I'm like, okay. I'm not sure it actually means one way or the other because it's still a time reference. I don't care. But this is one of those times where if you ever wanted do like the Maureen O'Donnell Grammar Award, if you're ever really interested in your grammar, that's where you tell, oh, servire means takes a dative, and that's why temporibus is in the dative and not the ablative, and that would definitely be an upper level grammar question that someone would truly love to ask about. Okay, so he served. So he was, again, we've got these historical infinities. He was serving. What's interesting about this verb servere is often used to describe enslaved people and how they were supposed to serve, like their dominus or their domina. So when we have this, we're saying that he really was very sometimes servile in his gestures. And that must have been to, make nice with the rich people or with, I don't even know. So he was serving in times, temporibus here is an ablative, well, it's a dative expression of time in times of need. Okay. Um, for his own, and I know this is like a genitive, but it's almost like it's like a possessive. Well, of course it's possessive. In times of need, of his own people, in times of need of his own people. So the suorum, whenever you see that, it's always like it's your friends, it's your family, it's your close people, it's the people that you want to make friends with, or that you want to be friends with. So that would be the suorum. Okay, so all of his grossest people, he was serving in times of need with his money, pecunia, with money. Okay, with gratia, it's a good way to say gratia, with like favors, and with the work of the body. Favors and with, and I'm assuming that means his own body. So with the work of his body. Okay. And I'm assuming that goes into the old, what is it, the popular question now? If you have to bury a body, who are you calling? Apparently you would be calling Catiline. Okay. Even with wickedness. Okay. So and so you've got all these things. He was serving in times of need with money with his own people. So he was serving in times of need his own people with money, with favors, with the work of his body, and also with wickedness or with evil intent. If there was a need, see opus esset, and with audacia, with audacity, with daring. Okay. Boy, I have to say, this paper does not hold the ink well. These little post-it notes are ripping it right off. Okay, so here we go. Where was I? I was right here. Okay, even wickedness, even, and let's say evil deeds. Oops. Evil deeds. Okay. If there was a need. If there was a need. Okay. And with daring. Daring, audacity, I don't know what else you want to say for Taki. I'm sure there's a better way. All right. He was turning his own nature. He's turning his own nature, and he was ruling here, regulating. Oh God, maybe regulating. Okay, to the time. And here, ad tempus is like not necessarily like, oh, he ate lunch at lunch. It's not like to that kind of time, but what we mean is to the he was the appropriate person at the appropriate time. Okay, so he turned his own nature and he was able to, we would say, what, code switch. So you might be a different person at school than you are at home. Teachers probably put on it. You do it. You're a different person in a professional environment than you are hanging out with your friends, right? You might be more inclined to be someone who goofs off at school, but then you're very serious and regulated at home, or maybe you goof off at home and you're more serious at school. Perhaps there's certain languages that you don't use at school that you would use at home. I don't know. Some of you I don't think have any boundaries, but for this guy here, he was all of these things, and he was able to regulate himself, his own personality. We could even say it's sort of like his personality. Okay, to the Tempus does mean time, but in this case, again, not we're not talking about physical time. We're talking about like an experience, a situation. To the time, I think situation might be better. Situation. Okay, situation. And torquore, he turned, and flectere, he bent himself here and there. Weak ilique. Okay. And he turned and he bent himself, understood, here and there. Okay, this way and that way. He was constantly back and forth. Okay. And all of these coombs, so starting with this coomb here, it's all picked off the weaver right here. He lived, um, Severe is he was stern. He lived sternly, and they're almost, I guess we could do this. With the sad, he was stern. With the relaxed, he was jovial. With the old man, he was serious. With the young man, he was comitaire. He was agreeable. With the men of wickedness, wicked deeds, he was audacia, daring. With those of debauchery, he was extravagant. Okay, so we've got this constant, and he really does, where before we sort of set it up, he's like, who is more this and this and this and this, and we get all of this sort of build up at the very last line, the last two. I'm not calling them sentences because I think this whole thing has been one sentence right now. I forget where it starts. It might start with a quiz. There was a question mark in here, yeah. And then, yeah, so this whole thing might be just two sentences, actually. Nope, lied, three sentences. So starting with the illa, that's one sentence. So these last two sections, lines, whatever you are, we can see just again with these historical infinitives, this piling on. And Cicero does used to use a syndeton a great deal. He loves anaphora, he loves a syndeton, and he loves rhetorical question, right? And you can see all of that sort of plainly in here. So, and he lived with the sad, stern, with the relaxed, he was jovial, jucunde, pleasant. I'll say with the relaxed, he was pleasant. Okay, with the old men, he was severe. Severe, like I don't want to say stern again. Gravitor and Sewere kind of remind me, like, like that gravity. Someone has gravitas. They have a lot of like seriousness about them. They don't joke around. They don't drink, they don't smoke, they don't, they go to bed at 9, they get up at 5, they run 5 miles. I don't know. They're just a very serious sort of like old, I feel like an old grizzled military man kind of. All right. So with the old men, he was severe. With the young men, he was comitaire. Hold on, look at this. Okay, with the young men, he was like playful. With the young men, there's got to be a better way to say it than playful. Hold on. With the young man, he was obliging. Obliging. I don't even know how to spell that. Okay. With excuse me, with the crime stained or wicked. I love crime stained. With the crime stained, he was daring. Okay, and with the what do I say? With the libidinos, with the debauched. With the debauched, he lived he was extravagant. I don't know how to spell extravagant, so we'll do that. Okay, so there we go at the end there. All right. So he was living severely with the sad. He was pleasant with the relaxed. He was serious with the old men. He was accommodating or obliging with the young men. He was daring with the wicked men, and he was extravagant with the debauched. And so again, this personality change in the way that he was able to sort of slither and snake his way through these different situations to always appeal to the greatest common number of people. I always compared him to the way that Cicero describes him to Iago, if any of you have ever read Othello, that backstabbing, conniving, twisting nature of someone who's able to convince you absolutely that they're your best friend right up until they drive the knife between your shoulder blades. Okay. And that's how Cicero is describing Catiline in this. Okay. So again, this is where Cicero really starts to dig into Catiline's character. Okay. And describe exactly how evil he was. All right. There you go. That's section 13. Let me know if you have questions.